I never thought I would find myself in this position. I'm feeling so torn between my own desires, my marriage, and my fear of losing everything. Yet here I am, sitting on our couch. Well, technically, his couch now, since he's the one who paid for it, trying to figure out how to bridge this chasm I've created. We've been married for 4 years, and though I'll admit we've had our ups and downs, I never imagined things would become this raw, this exposed. A part of me knows I messed up. Another part of me feels paralyzed by the idea of living without him, or at least without his stability. I'm terrified of being alone, and I hate how that terror makes me feel so weak. When we first got together, I was captivated by the security he provided. It wasn't just financial, though that was certainly part of it. He's steady, dependable, and everyone says he has a heart of gold. I have always been the outgoing type, and sure, I like attention, maybe a little more than the average woman. I'm used to men flirting with me, telling me I'm gorgeous, or that they'd do anything to be with me. For most of my life, I've thrived on that kind of admiration. It made me feel powerful, in control of my world. But I also like the idea of having someone constant in my life, someone who wouldn't leave no matter what storms I brought. I know people would say that sounds narcissistic. Maybe it is. Maybe I am. I've heard that word thrown around before, but I've always brushed it off. The thing is, when you're used to everyone telling you how beautiful you are, how irresistible you are, it starts to feel like that's all that matters. And then you just keep craving more of it. Even after we got married, I kept collecting compliments from male friends. Innocently at first, or so I told myself. But lines have a way of blurring, and once a man tells me he loves me, it's like a switch flips. I feel validated, powerful, desired, and that can become addicting. The first time I strayed outside our marriage was about 2 years ago. It started as an emotional thing, or at least that's how I justified it. I met a man at a friend's birthday party. He was charming, very attentive, and told me all the right things. We never officially slept together, but I crossed lines, emotionally and physically. My husband found out because he saw some messages on my phone. It nearly broke him. I promised I would never do anything like that again. Swore to him it was a mistake, a moment of weakness. In truth, I still think about how alive I felt during those flirtations. But I convinced him, and maybe even myself, that I could change. Then about a year later, I fell into something similar. This time it was a coworker from a short-lived gig I tried, an older man who made me feel like the most irresistible woman on earth. We'd meet for coffee, linger in his car, talking about how misunderstood we both felt. But again, it got too close to crossing the line. My husband never fully found out the extent of that one, so it never caused the blow-up that the first one did. Still, the guilt was there, waiting to be triggered by the next moment of weakness. Now we're here, in the aftermath of a physical affair that began 2 months ago, but only came to light last week. I won't lie, I felt something electrifying with this man. He's a close friend of ours, someone with his own family, and we connected in ways that made me feel like I was on fire. But when it ended and I tried to move on, my husband discovered it. I can't quite describe the look in his eyes, like something inside him had died right then and there. It broke my heart to see him so hurt, yet part of me couldn't handle the guilt, so I snapped back into defense mode, telling him it was just a mistake, that I was confused, that I didn't know what I was doing. He says he feels numb, like all emotional connection to me has been stripped away. I see it every time he looks at me, this hollow, distant stare, like he can't believe he's sharing the same space with me. And we are still in the same house because, let's face it, I have nowhere else to go. I haven't worked in ages. I depended on him for everything. Rent, bills, groceries. It was easy to do that because he never complained. He would bend over backward for me, always eager to please. That's one thing that endeared me to him in the first place. I guess I never realized what would happen if I pushed him too far. Now I'm faced with the possibility that he might ask me to leave, or divorce me, or worse, just live in perpetual resentment. The fear of being alone grips me more strongly than the shame of what I've done, and that realization makes me feel even more ashamed. Am I so selfish that my greatest worry is about ending up on my own, rather than fully grasping how I've shattered his heart? I want to make it right, or at least part of me does. I want him to forgive me, but I'm also painfully aware that my apologies might ring hollow. I've said them before, after all. This time, though, everything feels more final, more dire. He's colder than I've ever seen him, and I can sense he's trying not to let me in. It scares me. In fact, it terrifies me. Because if he cuts me out, then who am I without him? Where do I go? What do I do? Sure, men pay attention to me, and I can always find someone to latch on to. But that's not the same as having someone who knows me entirely and still chose to be with me. When I look back on our 4 years of marriage, I see a pattern. I crave attention, I flirt, I cross boundaries, and I expect him to clean up the mess because he's so steady. Maybe that's what drew me to him. He felt like a safety net I could always rely on, no matter how far I strayed. Now that net is frayed, and I might be about to fall through. I'm not asking for pity. If anything, I'm wrestling with guilt, shame, and fear in equal measure. But I also know I have this impulse to keep seeking validation wherever I can get it. Maybe it is narcissism, or maybe I never learned to love myself in a healthy way. Whatever it is, I need to confront it. I just don't know if I can do that while also healing the massive wound I've inflicted on my marriage. I hope he gives me a chance. I hope he can somehow find it in his heart to trust me again. But I can see that steel layer of apathy in his eyes, and it reminds me this is real. This time, I might lose him. And the worst part is, for the first time, I'm truly scared that I actually deserve it. Update. It's been 4 months since I packed up and walked out of the home my husband and I once shared, and I still can't believe how quickly our world unraveled. I'm renting a small, furnished place now, barely more than a room with a kitchenette, and for the moment, it's all I can afford on part-time wages. I'd been clinging to the hope that we might reconcile, that he'd at least talk to me, but every time I try to reach out, I'm referred to his lawyer. It's as if he's decided to surgically remove me from his life, and maybe I can't blame him for that. In the early days after I moved out, I couldn't stop messaging him, calling him, trying to get him to see me. Initially, he would respond, usually by asking me to respect his boundaries or by reiterating that we were no longer in a relationship. He told me he couldn't move on from what I did, and I suppose that's the reality of betrayal. Sometimes there's just no going back. It was too much. I struggled to believe it, convinced myself that if I just expressed the right amount of remorse or showed enough determination, maybe he'd crack the door open. But he hasn't, and I'm finally starting to accept that he may never. There are moments I'm so desperate to feel the security of his presence, of our old life when I could just spend the whole day relaxing without having to worry about looming bills, that I catch myself writing out long texts or emails, trying to explain yet again what was going on in my head, how sorry I am, how much I've changed. Then I stop. I realize it doesn't matter how much I've changed if he can't bear the thought of looking me in the eye. It's a painful lesson in how consequences don't just vanish because we become someone new or because we regret our actions. Sometimes the damage is permanent. I've had to pick up extra shifts at work, which, to be honest, is probably a good thing. When I'm clocked in, my mind is occupied by tasks and conversations with customers. I can't dwell on the growing stack of legal papers or the emptiness of my tiny apartment. Of course, as soon as I clock out, everything rushes back. The nights are the worst, sitting alone, knowing he's out there, determined to keep me at a distance. Meanwhile, the man I had an affair with has relocated with his family, and I hear through mutual acquaintances that he's trying to reconcile. I'm not bitter about that. Part of me hopes they manage to piece things back together. I've come to realize that heartbreak ripples outward, affecting not just the two people directly involved, but entire families, circles of friends, and so many relationships in between. Loneliness and regret are powerful teachers. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that you can't expect the person you betrayed to carry you through the fallout of your own choices. It's my job now to find a way forward. And while it's painful to acknowledge that our marriage is probably lost forever, I'm learning to stand on my own 2 feet, no matter how unsteady they may feel at times.